to show you that if Islam is a system that guarantees us prosperity in the dunya as well as in the akhirah, for within the dunya, Islam as a religion has the ultimate principles of governance from a social, political and economic perspective, which if adhered to would guarantee the success and the prosperity of humanity in its entirety. Ajib. And you find that these are aspects of Islam, aspects of the teachings of Ahlul Bayt that are rarely ever focused on. When in reality, the dunya, the world in which we live and the problems that we see, we are in need of solutions such as these. The economic principles within Islam as per the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. When we say that religion is a system that allows for the success and the prosperity of mankind in the dunya, yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through Rasulullah and Ahlul Bayt has left for us these principles of governance that are supposed to free mankind from the problems that we face today. From an economic perspective, it is one of the most fundamental aspects of Islam. When you look into the government of Rasulullah and you look at the government of Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, you find that economic policy was at the root of their governance. How do you think Islam under the watchful eye of Rasulullah spread from Medina to Mecca and throughout Hijaz? Sahih, he was a prophet, but at the same time he was a head of state. And in order to manage and govern a head of state as per the teachings of Islam, there had to be certain political, economic theories and principles put into place to transfer people and facilitate for this move from ultimate Jahiliyyah into Islam. And the same with the government of Amirul Mu'mineen. You come by way of example in some of these rules and economic theories that exist within Islam that facilitate for the prosperity of mankind. You find that the economic principles that exist within our deen are far more vibrant and are far more accommodating than some of the economic principles that you will find in some of the most democratic countries in the world. Aslan, the world has not seen economic principle like the ones within the school of Ahlul Bayt. By way of two examples, and the second example leads into Fadak, the land of Fadak. Number one, imagine living in an economy where you are not taxed on your income. Imagine living in an economy where you are not taxed on how much you earn, but how much you save. The taxation system within Islam. If a country was to rule as per the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, within the governance of Ahlul Bayt, within the economic principles of Ahlul Bayt, there is no taxes imposed upon the citizens of the state on their income. There are only 4 taxes that are payable as per the school of thought of Ahlul Bayt by the citizens of the state. There is the khums, the zakat, and then there is the khiraj, which is a land tax, and the jizya, which is that is to be paid by the non-Muslims, and each one has its own tafasil within them. But you find that from the primary taxes within the Islamic government, if a country was to be ruled by the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, there is no taxes paid on income. Aslan, this terminology of net income, gross income, pre-tax income does not exist. Within the school of Ahlul Bayt, the tax is only on the wealth that is saved. And you imagine the first impact of this is that the spending power of the citizens of the state increase by that percentage of the tax which is waived for them. Movement towards prosperity. Have you found, or do you see, any government from the most developed and democratic countries in the world that has a taxation system based on savings and not on earnings and income? You don't find this except in the government of Ahlul Bayt. Second example, Ahlul Bayt's economic theory when it came to land ownership. You find that within Islam and the teachings of Rasulullah and Amirul Mu'mineen, the citizens of the state have absolute freedom to own land without having to pay any land tax. And this is proved from within the Quran and the Sunnah. You find that because the basis of the constitution and the basis of economic principle in Islam is the Quran and the Hadith of Ahlul Bayt. You find that from within the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, Allah Azza wa Jal says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, هو الذي خلق لكم ما في الأرض جميعا. It is He, Allah Azza wa Jal, who has created for you everything on this earth. And you find that the point of the istidlal, the point of extracting this economic theory is from the pronoun lakum. Huwa alladhi, it is He who created lakum, for you. For you meaning who? Like the way the Quran is a book of guidance for everyone. Hudal lil alameen, for example. It is a book of guidance for entire mankind. Similarly, the land and this earth which is created, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says within the Quran that the possession of this earth belongs to the people in its entirety. The land does not belong to the government or a group of people such that they have the right to charge taxes for anybody who wants to own a piece of land. Abadan la. Islam sees this as an imposition on the essential and necessary freedom, the right that a person has to owning land and owning a home. And you find that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, he states within this hadith, Al-Sharif, mentioned in the book Al-Mustadrak, Al-Ardu lillahi wa liman ammaraha. Land, ownership of land belongs to those, number one, belongs to Allah Azza wa Jal, yani the Khaliq. And number two, to those who have the ability to develop it. So you find over here that the issue of development, land development, and the ability to utilize land is connected with the right of ownership. And you find that from this principle, Islamic economic theory is very, very different from a pure capitalistic model or a socialist and a communist model. Some people, Bain al-Qawsayn, between brackets, are of the opinion that an Islamic economic system is a mix of communism and capitalism. La, abadan la. Two aspects that, according to the eyes of Islam, are batil in its entirety. You see, for example, basic economic principle. I don't want to turn this into an economic lecture, but to show you the vastness of which Islam as a religion is, and how far behind we are when it comes to implementing Islam. Basic economic theory teaches us principles from Adam Smith, the founding father of modern economics. The first theory is that resources are scarce. And because the resources are scarce, you find that people compete with each other in order to have ownership over these resources. And it is based on this, resources are scarce, that you have this entire concept of demand and supply that is taught within the local schools. In Islam, the issue is the totally opposite. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not say that resources are scarce. Rather, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says within the Quran, "In ta'uddu ni'matallahi," if you were to count the ni'mah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon you, you would not even be able to count them. You cannot encompass them, meaning that the resources that Allah has given us on this earth are vast and sufficient enough for everybody. So you find that there are two totally contradictory schools altogether. Within the communist school of thought, you have everybody should be equal in their right, regardless of whether they deserve or they don't deserve. The state treats everyone at the same level. Islam says, "La, فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَى وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَى." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the reward system is based on the extent of the amal. The one who works hard sees the reward. Ala kullin. For you have over here that within Islam there is absolutely no land tax. The human being, mankind, has the right to own land and to build homes upon these lands and to engage in every sort of business in the real estate and farming and agriculture as he sees fit without having to pay anything. Have you seen an economy in any part of the world that gives out free land to the citizens of the state to claim as is? Even the most democratic countries in the world, Allah. This is the deen of Islam. This is the economic principle of Islam that we need to showcase to the dunya. This is what a government of Islam is. As opposed to these governments of Islam that we see from the Daesh and the ISIS and God knows which other terrorists are out there in the name of Islam. This is where we need thinkers and academics to come forward and show the real Islam of Ahlul Bayt. The reforms, when we say that the awaited Imam al-Hujjah ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, that when he reappears, alladhi yamla'ul arda adlan wa qistan kama muli'at dhulman wa jawra, the one who will fill the earth with peace and justice, just like the way it was filled with oppression and injustice. How will the Imam come and fill the earth with peace and justice? It is by implementing theories such as these that allow the people to prosper. Two basic simple principles. If you were to contemplate over them, you would see that we are able to eradicate half of the world's problems in regards to global poverty and homelessness. Now, I came across some statistics a couple of days back. In London, the BBC had issued statistics that inside of the UK, 36 people become homeless on a daily basis. And this is supposed to be a developed country, huh? 36 people a day. You come and you look into statistics within developing countries in the subcontinent, in India, over 2 to 3 million homeless people. Does Islam have a solution towards this? Or is it just a religion that is far-fetched and constrained to certain acts of spirituality? Abadan la. Islam has an active role in terms of helping mankind attain prosperity. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Tayyib, for if we understand that these are the concepts within Islam from a very basic perspective when it comes to economic theory, we come into the aspect of moving from land to the aspect of Fadak. Fadak ya ahibba'i, the lands of Fadak. was not a small garden or a small piece of land that was left for inheritance or that was gifted by Rasulullah to Sayyidah Zahra. Abadallah. Historians have come and told us, and historians have asserted that the land of Fadak was actually an entire village in its entirety, a settlement of its own. The number of palm trees that used to be harvested from the land of Fadak were equivalent to the date trees that were harvested from the city of Kufa in its entirety. One of the most fertile lands in Hijaz, through which dates were harvested as well as wheat. Ibn Abul Hadid al-Mu'tazili, who is from the Amma, non-Shia, in his commentary of Nahjul Balagha states that to show you the value, material value of the land of Fadak, that was the right of Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen, he states that the annual harvest that used to be extracted from the fertile land of Fadak was close to 70,000 dinars per annum. 70,000 dinars, yani a dinar gold coin and a dirham silver coin. 70,000 gold coins, on the assumption that every dinar weighed 5 grams, on the loose assumption, a very, very generous approximation, that each gold coin weighed 5 grams. That means for us to understand the financial power that used to be extracted and harvested from the land of Fadak in terms of today's purchasing power and the relative value, you would say that the approximate harvest that used to come out from the land of Fadak on a daily basis equal to just about $14 million per annum. How strategic was this land of Fadak that was granted to Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen? Which is why, at least from a material perspective, we should not be surprised that the founding fathers of Saqifa, as soon as they usurped power and usurped the Khilafah by way of a military coup, the first thing they did is they went and they got possession of the land of Fadak because of its fertility and the strategic yield that used to be extracted from it. Have you seen, either from documentaries or from olden movies or whatnot, or in world history, whenever a military coup becomes successful, what's the first thing the military coup does? It takes over a strategic building or a strategic asset of that country to denote that it is now in power. There used to be times back when military coups used to happen. For example, in Africa, one of the first things they would do is that they would go, as soon as the coup happened, they would go and they would take over the TV station or the radio station. Why? Why would they take over the radio station? Because it was a form of media. So when this new government that comes in by force, the first thing that it does, it takes over the premises of the media, because the media is considered to be the most powerful aspect of the time, the most powerful tool of the time. You have other military coups that as soon as they came into the power, the first thing they did is they took control of, for example, the central bank. The same thing when it happened to Saqifa, when they usurped the rights of Amirul Mu'mineen. The first thing they went and they did is that they removed the wakils of Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen and took full control over the land of Fadak. Why? Because of its financial strategic importance. And Ibn Abul Hadid al-Mu'tazili is able to gain a confession from his teacher where he says that the founding fathers of Saqifa were insistent to take over the land of Fadak because they were scared that perhaps Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen and Amirul Mu'mineen may use the land of Fadak in order to fund and in order to put together an opposition against this coup. So the first thing they did is that they reduced their financial harm. And this is from a materialistic perspective. In any case, If we understand that the land of Fadak was a land that was rich, $14 million of equivalents in terms of annual yield that used to come out from there, we ask ourselves, and many times Orientalists have come and have placed this ishkal on us, and it is important for us to be able to address these misconceptions as well. A person comes forward and he says to you, Tayyib, the land of Fadak was one of the richest lands inside of Arabia. Rasulullah, who is also the Prophet and also the head of state, he takes this land of Fadak, which is the richest land in Fadak, in the Hijaz, Afwan, and he gifts it to his daughter. Does this not mean somebody could come forward and put the ishkal to you? He puts this objection. Does this not mean that Rasulullah actually implemented a policy of nepotism? Isn't this an evident case of nepotism? Which even the non-Muslims, which even an atheist and a faithless person will tell you that it is morally unethical to be involved in any type of behavior that promotes nepotism. You think about it. And you go to India or you go to Pakistan, for example, the Prime Minister takes the most fertile agricultural land in Pakistan and he goes and he gives it to his daughter. Nepotism. The world will condemn him. So Orientalists come forward and they say to us, you want to condemn those people? Your Nabi did the same thing. Your Prophet did the same thing. He was the head of state. He was the Prophet. He got the richest land, not any land. It was the richest land in Hijaz and he went and he gave it to his daughter. So this shows us that your Prophet was also practicing nepotism. And hence, the corruption that you see in Islam, wal-ayadu billah, they say is a corruption that roots back from your own Prophet. It is important when somebody comes forward with this ishkal, how do we answer back to them? It is important for us to be equipped with answers such that people don't come and plant shak within our aqidah. Our answer towards this, ya ahibba'i, number one, is to understand the definition of nepotism. What is the definition of nepotism? At least that aspect of a definition that everybody agrees upon. The definition of nepotism is when a person in power takes advantage of that power to gift anything of material value to his or her family members for personal enrichment. This is the most agreed upon definition of nepotism. There are additions and subtractions and expansions and everything. But this is the most agreed upon thing. A person in power takes something of value, be it land, be it money, be it a job position, whatever it is, and gives it to their family member, regardless of whether they deserve it or not, for their own personal enrichment. If we understand this is the definition of nepotism, we come and we say that for Rasulullah to give the land to Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam does not even meet the first condition of nepotism, because this land of Fadak, which was given to Sayyidah Zahra, did the Holy Prophet give it to her out of his own accord, or was it due to something else? You come and you read within the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Al-Isra says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wa ati dhal qurba haqqahu. After the battle of Khaybar, this verse of the Quran was revealed and the land of Fadak was given to the Holy Prophet. This verse was revealed by Allah within the Quran, wa ati dhal qurba haqqahu, and give the family members their rights. Rasulullah asked, who is meant by this Dhal Qurba, Jibreel comes down and says, it is the hukum and the command of Allah, the creator of the universe, that this land of Fadak must be gifted, must be granted to Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra alayha salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And you find that this is a point of ittifaq between the Khassa and the Amma, the Shia and the Sunnah. In fact, from the Amma, from the Sunni sources, you have Mufassirin of the Quran, the likes of Ibn Kabir, and you have the likes of As-Suyuti in Durr al-Manthur, who come forward and they assert the fact that this verse of the Quran, when it was revealed in order for Allah to grant Fadak to Sayyidah Zahra alayha salam. So number one, this condition does not even meet, or this instance does not even meet the definition of nepotism, because the one to grant Fadak to Sayyidah Zahra was not Rasulullah, was Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah through Rasulullah gave it to Sayyidah Zahra. Yani for Rasulullah, every action that he does, the Quran says is not his action, but the action of Allah. وَمَا يَنْتِكُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak out of his own accord except for that which is a divine will. And therefore, we say that it fails to meet the definition of nepotism because this land was not granted to Sayyidah Zahra by Rasulullah out of his own accord. It was granted by Allah. And Allah, as we know, Azza wa Jal, from the most basic sifat of Allah, sifat al-thubutiyah, is that Allah is Hakim. And if Allah is Hakim, there is a reason why He has granted this vast land of great financial, strategic importance to Sayyidah Zahra. Right, number one. Number two, you find that this objection fails to meet the accusation of nepotism from the aspect of the seerah of Sayyidah Zahra. You find that within the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala praises the household of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen, Surah Al-Insan, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. Surah Al-Insan, perhaps all of you already know this incident, where for 3 days, Sayyidah Zahra and Amir al-Mu'mineen and Sayyidah Fidda and Imamain al-Hasan and Hussein make another. That because the Hasanain, Imam Hassan and Imam al-Hussein were ill, so the family made another that if the two children become well, they will fast for 3 days. And every day they fasted, as you already know the incident. On the first day they were fasting at the time of iftar. They were going to do iftar. Somebody knocks on the door. It is a miskin. They gave away their entire iftar. Inshallah, all of you know this incident. They gave their entire iftar to the miskin. What did they have? Water. They went to sleep and the next day they fasted. Second day they are going to do iftar. An orphan comes. They give away their food. They drink iftar, they have water and they fast for 3 days. Now think about this. How is it that Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen, who has been gifted the land of Fadak in the 7th year after Hijrah, she is the owner of the most wealthiest land in Hijaz, yet when it comes to her own household, she barely has enough food of iftar for her own family. Yani, despite having access to the richest land of Fadak, you have Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen sleeping hungry. Ajib. Then we ask ourselves, and from here, this is Amr Khatira. This is, I want to open an issue for you, which is extremely sensitive and delicate, if not dangerous, when it comes to Aqidah. And this is the introduction for tomorrow's majlis on the Adama and the Fadila and the Daraja of Sayyidati Nisa'il Alam. Why? How is it? Why is it that Sayyidah Zahra was given? Think about this. Why is it that Sayyidah Zahra was given ownership of this land of Fadak, so vast in size and in its yield, but yet she didn't even benefit from one date of this farm? She slept hungry. What is the point of you having ownership on this wealth if you are personally not going to benefit from it? This is another example that this isn't a case of nepotism. What did she do with this land? Allahu Akbar. Allah has granted her the most fertile land in Hijaz, which she doesn't use for her own purpose. From here we understand that Sayyidah Zahra used the land of Fadak to feed the people of Hijaz and to remove poverty from within the Muslim nation. Some of the wives of the Holy Prophet themselves say that we were used to spending nights without having eaten any food until the time when Fadak was granted to Fatima al-Zahra, because it is from the yields of Fadak that the food began to come into our house. From here we understand that the giving of Fadak to Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demonstrates to us that Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra had a great position within the dawla, within the hukuma of Rasulullah. She had an important place within the government of Rasulullah. This Fadak denoted that Sayyidah Zahra had executive powers within the government of Rasulullah, particularly when it came to maintaining equality and justice and reducing poverty within the Islamic world. Through this land of Fadak, 70,000 gold dinar annual yield, as we said, $14 million, yet under her possession, yet she goes to sleep hungry. Because this land was used for the empowerment of the Muslims. And from here, we begin to understand that Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra had wilayah on the Ummah during the time of Rasulullah. Waliyatul Amr Fatima alayha salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Do you know this title, Waliyul Amr, which is given to Imam al-Hujjah? Every one of the Imams is Waliyul Amr. Rasulullah is also Waliyul Amr. Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra also Waliyul Amr. Do you know the meaning of Waliyul Amr? It's made up of two words, Wali and Amr. Wali, yani Amr, meaning all our affairs. Wali, the one who has power over all our affairs. And this wilaya is divided into two, takwini and tashri'i. Wilaya, yani absolute power over the kawn. And number two, wilaya takwiniya, absolute authority over the religion. Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra possessed both of these. Which is why, ya ahibai, it is important for us to understand what Fadak represented. And why Sayyidah Zahra reacted in the manner that she did. She said to the founding fathers of Saqifa on her deathbed, when they came to visit her, she said to him, وَلَا أَدْعُوَنَّ عَلَيْكَ فِي كُلِّ صَلَاةٍ أُصَلِّيهَا. This is found in the books that are non-Shia. Refer back to Kitabul Imama wa Siyasa by Ibn Qutayba. Sayyidah Zahra says to him, the first one, Fir'aun of the Ummah, the Jibt, as the way Rasulullah says, she said to him, I shall do dua against you. I shall pray for Allah to punish you in every salat that I recite. Why would she say this? Would she say this over some small petty land? Sayyidah Zahra was bigger than this. It was because of that land, Fadak, what it represented, and the wilayah that it represented of Fatima al-Zahra in the government of Ahlul Bayt. In all honesty, the usurpation of Fadak opened the doors of all catastrophe in the Muslim Ummah. Because what did this represent? The ruling regime usurps private property without any proof. Yani, in today's term, forced nationalization of private property by a government. Find me one democratic country in the world that accepts this. Aslan, the one who is faithless, the atheist, will tell you that forced nationalization is incorrect. What about the land of Sayyidah Zahra? And the worst thing is that it was done in the name of religion. And this is the sticking point. That violence and confiscation of people's property was justified using the name of Islam. This is what Sayyidah Zahra stood against. And this, my dear brothers and sisters, is the leading reason for Islamophobia that we see today. When you look at the countries that claim to be Islam, and the manner in which they have oppressed their citizens and other citizens of other states, all in the name of Allah Azza wa Jal. This is what Sayyidah Zahra stood against. And this is what she was the first victim of. Inshallah, for tomorrow's lecture, we delve in. It will be less of an economic lesson, inshallah, but more on the fada'il and the adamah of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ahibai, the masa'ib of Sayyidah Zahra is a masa'ib that is truly deep and heartbreaking. Inshallah, if Allah gives us life, tomorrow I want to recite for you the masa'ib, the entire masa'ib of the door. Bit-tafasil, with details, step by step, what happened leading up to the burning of the door. And inshallah, the day after, we shall have the recitation of the entire maqtal, yani the final moments of the life of Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen, all the way to the time that she was actually put in the grave. This is tomorrow and day after. Tonight's Masa'ib, ya Ahibai, I want to join two musibas together. The musibah of Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra Siddiqat al-Kubra, and the musibah of her daughter Sayyidah Zainab Siddiqat al-Sughra. Allah. These two oppressed women of Ahlul Bayt. The narrations mention that upon the return of Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra from Karbala to Medina, Allah. This is after Arba'in, when Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra comes back to Medina. The city of Medina, when Sayyidah Zainab left, she was surrounded by all her brothers and her nephews. She was surrounded by Imam al-Husayn and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas and Ali al-Akbar and Qasim. But now when Sayyidah Zainab comes back to Medina, she comes back all alone, having left everybody shuhada, unburied in the lands of Karbala. Karbala. How does, when Sayyidah Zainab comes back to Medina, what does she do? I want to take your heart to Medina, and it is as if you were walking behind Sayyidah Zainab and you were following her. The narrations mention that she first went to the grave of Rasulullah and she cried, and after that the narrations mention that Sayyidah Zainab al-Kubra went to the grave of her mother Fatima al-Zahra. Allah, Allah. And where is the grave of Fatima? None of us know. Is it in Jannatul Baqi? Is it in the house? Where can we do your ziyarah, ya Sayyidah Fatima al-Zahra? The narrations mention that Sayyidah Zainab threw herself on the grave of her mother Fatima. She began to weep and she began to cry until the tears of Sayyidah Zainab fell on the grave of Sayyidah Fatima. She wept and then she said, "Oh my mother Fatima, oh my mother Fatima, I remembered you at every step of my tragedy in Karbala." She says, "Oh my mother," this is Sayyidah Zainab sitting on the qabr of Sayyidah Fatima. She's weeping and she's crying. She tells her, "Oh my mother Fatima, I remembered you. I remembered you on the time when I was taken into the darbar of Shah. Oh my mother Fatima, when they made us walk through the bazaar of Sham into the darbar of Yazid, my mother Fatima, I cried out and I said, 'Ya Fatima.'" Why? Sayyidah Zainab says, because when I walked through the darbar, she says, "Oh my mother Fatima, I remembered how you came out of the house and you went to the masjid following my father Ali, and at that point Mughira came and hit you, oh my mother Fatima. In the way that they hit you, they began to whip us on our backs in the darbar of Sham." Zainab says, "I cried out, 'Ya Ummah, ya Fatima.'" Allah, Allah, Allah. Sayyidah Zainab weeping on the grave of her mother Sayyidah Zahra. She comes up and she says a second time, "Oh my mother Fatima, oh my mother Fatima, I remembered you on Sham-e Ghariban." Allah, why Sham-e Ghariban? Sayyidah Zainab says, "Oh my mother Fatima, when they began to burn the tents on Sham-e Ghariban and the children started running away in every direction, I was in the tent pulling out sajjad. When I felt the heat of the fire on the tent on myself, I cried out and I remembered the burning door of my mother Fatima. I cried out, 'Ya Fatima.'" Allah, Allah. The burning tents on Sham-e Ghariban and the burning door of the house of Sayyidah Zahra. More than that, Sayyidah Zahra says, "Oh my mother Fatima, I remembered you on the day of Ashura when Imam al-Hussein came back to the Khaymaga holding this young infant Aliyun al-Asghar." Allah, Allah. Do you know on the day of Ashura when Aliyun al-Asghar was made shaheed, when Aliyun al-Asghar was made shaheed and Imam al-Hussein was going back to the Khaymaga, this baby, this infant, the hadith says that it was a three-pronged arrow. ذَبَحَهُ مِنَ الْوَرِيدِ إِلَى الْوَرِيدِ. The arrow pierced one side of the jugular vein and came out from the other side. The narrations, the makatil, they mentioned that when Imam al-Hussein went back to the Khaymaga with this baby, when he went into the Khaymaga, he didn't show the baby to the mother Rubab. He didn't show the baby to the mother Rubab. Why? Because if the mother was to see the baby, the mother would die of grief. So who did Imam al-Hussein give the baby to? The narration mentions Imam al-Hussein gave Aliyun al-Asghar to Zainab. When Zainab saw Aliyun al-Asghar, she cried out, "Ya Fatima." Why? When she saw Ali al-Asghar, she says, I remembered Muhsin al-Shaheed. Allah, Allah, Allah. Last part of the Masaib, ya Ikhwani. The narration, Sayyidah Zahra, Sayyidah Zainab crying and weeping on the grave of Sayyidah Fatima. Weeping on the grave of Sayyidah Fatima. She wipes her tears and she says, for the last time, oh my mother Fatima, I remembered you on the Asr of Ashura. Why, ya Zainab? She says, oh my mother, when Shimar and Umar bin Sa'ad began to trample on the body of Aba Abdullah, when I saw the broken ribs of Hussein, I remembered your broken rib behind the door and I cried out, Ya Fatima. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. ماتم حسين، ماتم فاطمة.
फातिमा को बहुत सताया है, हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है, हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने। उसके घर को जलाने आए हैं, जिसके घर में कुरान आया है, हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है, हाय बादे। उसके घर को जलाने आए हैं, जिसके घर में कुरान आया है, हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है। बड़े दरबार में मुसलमाने दोनों झुटला दिए हैं लाल उसके, जाने कैसा सलूक कर डाला, पल में हो गए सफेद बाल उसके, गिर के बेहोश हो गई ज़हरा, हाल ज़ैनब को जब सुनाया है, हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है। बोली फिज़ाई से रुलाना, झिड़कियाँ दो ना कुछ तो शर्म करो, देख जिसको नबी खड़े रहते उसको इसको दरबार में खड़ा न करो। रोई जब लाडली मोहम्मद की, सारा दरबार मुस्कुराया है। हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है। जो अजर सैयदा ने है पाया, कैसे कोई लगाए अंदाजा। जब मुसलमानों ने किया हमला, यूं लगा फातिमा को दरवाजा। जख्मी पहलू से पाक बीबी ने मर के भी हाथ न हटाया है। हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है। तेरी ही माँ का नाम है ज़ैनब और शबीर है सबर तेरा। तेरे आंसू सज्जाद के आंसू और सकीना में है असर तेरा। तेरे बच्चों ने बीबी तेरी तरह जुल्म सहकर ये जी बचाया है। हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है। हाय बादे जो अजर सैयदा ने है पाया, कैसे कोई लगाए अंदाजा। जब मुसलमानों ने किया हमला, यूं लगा फातिमा को दरवाजा। जख्मी पहलू से पाक बीबी ने मर के भी हाथ ना उठाया है। हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत सताया है। हाय उसके घर को जलाने आए हैं, जिसके घर में कुरान आया है। हाय बादे रसूल उम्मत ने फातिमा को बहुत बर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम।
बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। अस्सलामु अलैका या रसूल अल्लाह, अस्सलामु अलैका या खातमल अंबिया, अस्सलामु अलैका या अमीरल मुमिनीन सय्यिदुल औसिया अली इब्न अबी तालिब कसीमुन नार वल जन्नह। अस्सलामु अलैका या सय्यदा खदीजतुल कुबरा उम्मुल मुमिनीन हक्का। अस्सलामु अलैका या सय्यदा फातिमतुज़ ज़हरा सय्यदति निसाइल आलमीन। अस्सलामु अलैका या इमाम हसनुल मुज्तबा सय्यद शबाब अहलिल जन्नह। अस्सलामु अलैका या मौलाना या अबा अब्दुल्लाहिल हुसैन المظلوم المقتول بأرض كربلاء. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، لا سيما أبي الفضل العباس وأختك زينب الكبرى. السلام عليكم يا شهداء كربلاء جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أئمة الهدى وولاة أمر الله. السلام عليك يا إمام علي بن الحسين زين العابدين. السلام عليك يا إمام محمد بن علي باكر علوم الأنبياء. السلام عليك يا إمام جعفر بن محمد أصدق الصادقين. السلام عليك يا إمام موسى بن جعفر القادم أيها القادم